So this is video 2 in a series of videos using the baby names data from the Social Security Administration. So we should be back in our data set with mine is on Minnesota. I told you you could use your own state if you want. It should work just fine. So the next question I want to tackle is whether we can rank the names within each year and gender to find out which one was the most popular each year. What was the most popular boy name? What was the most popular girl name? So, of course, we can, quickly take a filter and say, let's only look at the girls. Let's look at some year like 1927. And if we make sure that it's sorted by the number of births descending, we could see that Mary was the most popular girl name in 1927. We could change that to M, and we can see that Robert was the most popular boy name. However, what if we want a ranking and have a new column with a ranking over here, ranking each baby each year? Then we need to get a little more sophisticated. And there are a bunch of different ways to do this. In this case, we need to rank within a gender and a year. So within females in 1910, what was number 1, what was number 2, etc., all the way down through the years and through both genders. That is a little more complicated. And there's several different solutions to ranking within subgroups like this, but they're a little complicated. So I'm going to start with a couple of things that allow us to get what we need, which mainly is the number 1, the top name each year, using a couple of simpler techniques that are actually useful for other things as well, that they're worth learning. So the first thing is that it would be great if, it really simplifies things if our group, which is gender and year, were in one column. So we're going to make a new gender-year column that's going to combine these two things together. And what we're really doing is just, it's referred to as concatenating strings. We're going to put this together with this, and we're going to have a dash in between it. So the formula for that is here, up here. So we use ampersands to concatenate things together. So we can tell it, take the contents of B2, which is gender, and then string that together with a dash. And we have to put the dash in quote marks because this is a piece of text that we're inserting into the data. And then string that together with the contents of C2, which is the year. So those ampersands, you just need to make sure you have the ampersands between each thing you want to string together. All right, so let's go into our sheet here and put that together. B2 ampersand quote dash quote ampersand C2. Notice I didn't type any spaces in there like I had in my little sheet there, the cheat sheet. The spaces I did to make it easier for you to read, but when you're typing you don't need them in there. So B2 ampersand quote dash quote ampersand C2 should get you F-1910. You could, of course, do it without the dash. I like putting dashes in there so I know that these things are two separate things put together. I'm going to do control period will take me down, while it's still highlighted, control period will take me down to the bottom so I can see that it is all filled in. Control period will take me back to the top. So now I'm going to highlight this whole column by clicking on the F, right mouse click and say copy, and then while the green running ants are still there, right mouse click again and choose paste special, and then choose values from this box and say OK. That will get rid of the formula and just leave our answer. So now we have a new column that we can use as part of our ranking. And to do this ranking, we're going to use an if statement, or what's called a logical function. An if statement allows you to say, if something is true, do this. If it's false, do that. It's a common thing in programming languages, and I find it super useful in Excel for data cleanup and some of these, more complicated things that just don't seem feasible for some reason, based on what you have in front of you. So I use if statements a lot. And the one we're going to do here is just a really, really, really simple one that's just a black and white. If this is true or not true, then do this. You can get really complicated with if statements, but I'll save that for another day. So I'm going to give you like a really basic if statement just to show you how this works. It's not going to be the one we use ultimately, but what we want to do is look to see, well, let me talk about if statements first of all. When you write an if statement, you need to include 3 things in your arguments within the if statement. The first one is the logical test, or what it is you want to evaluate. The second is what to do if that test proves to be true, or whatever it is you're evaluating is true. So what to do if it's true, and then what to do if it's false. So here's a super simple example. So we can say if F2 equals F1, and I know this is not going to make sense right now, but just bear with me, then we're going to say this must be the same group. If not, it's a new group. Okay, so the 3 parts there, F2 equals F1 is my logical test, or my criteria, what I call it criteria, what I'm evaluating. And then there's a comma, and then argument 2, right now I'm just saying drop the phrase same group into my cell. And I have quotes around it because it's a string of text that I'm going to drop into my data. What you put in this true portion here and what you put in the false portion could be anything. You can do math, you can grab information from other columns, you can drop in numbers, you can drop in text. It's very, very flexible. In this case, we're just going to drop in a little text. So if F2 does equal F1, it's going to put the phrase same group in this cell. If it's false, it's going to put the phrase new group. Now, if you look at this, what's going to happen? F2 does not equal F1. So it's going to put new group in this thing. Sure enough, there it did. Now, if I copy this down, our formula is going to take advantage of that thing that Excel does where it automatically adjusts your formula as you move down the page. So now it's saying, is F3 equal to F2? Well, yes it is. So this must be the same group. We're still in the girls from 1910. It is the same group. Now, if we copy this down the page, it's not going to change until we get to the boys of 1910. There we go. Look at there, we got a new group, and then it switched to, it's down back to the same group. So this doesn't quite work for what we need, obviously. This is not ranking them, but you can see what it's doing as we go along. So I'm going to clear that out. What we really want to do is put the number 1 on this row, and if when it gets to the next one, have it keep counting upwards. So this would be 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. So the way we can do that is relying on Excel's that whole changing of the formulas thing. So here, let's look at this formula. What we're going to do is say, if F2 equals F1, that's the same logical test we just used in that last formula. But instead of putting those phrases in like we did, we could say, well, if it's true, then we must be on the same group. We're just going to add 1 to whatever we put in the cell above. And if not, we're going to put in 1. So this might be a little confusing at first. So let's look at how it's working. So if F2 equals F1, yes, we're comparing to the header row. Hang tight. If it's true, do G1 plus 1. And you're probably going, what is she doing? There's nothing in G1. Hold tight. And if it's false, put in the number 1. So this is, just like which group are we on, right? So of course it's going to put number 1 in this first one because F1 and F2 didn't match each other. But as we go down, look what it did here. So it said, is F3 equal to F2? Yes, it is. So then it took G2, which is the 1 that we had in the previous column, previous cell above, and it added 1. And now we have the number 2. And then it went down here and it said, is F4 equal to F3? Yes, it is. So now it said G3 plus 1. So it's going to go all the way down this page, and it will, it's going to keep adding and adding and adding. Keep going until it gets to the next group. So where's the boys? There they are. The boys of 1910. See, it went all the way down through all the girl names in 1910, and then it hit a new group. Here, F214 does not, does F214 equal F213? No, it doesn't. So that means it's going to put a 1 in this cell, and it's going to start the counting all over again. So now this does not take into account ties. So like right here, there's 3 babies, 3 names with the same number each year, and it's not taking them into account at all. You would have to do a more sophisticated if statement to take those ties into account. For this situation, I'm not terribly worried about that because I really just care about this number 1 baby. The only thing I would be worried about would be, is it possible that our number 1 and number 2 babies are tied? So we could quick take a look at that. I'm going to filter to 1 and 2. How did I get to only 1910? Did I not? It must not have gone all the way down the page. Oh, that's right. I only went to down to 1910, didn't I? I forgot to copy the formula all the way down. See, errors happen to everybody, right? But you just look for them. Have it going all the way down. Control period to make sure it went all the way down. There we go. So now if I filter to just the number 1 and the number 2 babies, we could simplify things and just look at the girls, for example. You could just eyeball this a little bit and make sure here it's not looking like we have too many ties. A bunch of them are close, but not too many ties. Like I said, you can start making fancier if statements to deal with the ties if you want. But what I really wanted to do was just take these number 1 babies, the most popular, and be able to see the change in the popularity over time. Of course, Mary was popular for a very long time, and then came back again even. And then Lisa and Jennifer took over for a while there. And these days we're down to Olivia is the dominant name in Minnesota, at least. Of course, you could also do this in a pivot table. You could use filters to, of course, we want to label our column here. You could use a pivot table to pull out the ones you want. So there's the end of recording 2. We'll do another exercise in the next, using this data in the next video.